Today, we've got a special episode lined up as we look ahead to one of the most exciting events on the baseball calendar, the 2025 MLB Draft. That's tonight at 6 p.m., but right now, it's time for Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. The Pirates are sitting in a prime spot with the 6th overall pick, and the possibilities are wide open. To help us break it all down, I'm joined by Corey Shrader, writer over at Steel City Pirates and the author of a fantastic deep dive into the top options Pittsburgh could be considering. We're going to walk through the strategy, the top college arms, some high upside high school talent, and even a few names that might surprise you. Corey, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, brother.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me on. Look forward to this time of year. As soon as baseball season starts, especially college baseball season, start kind of looking at guys who may be options in the upcoming draft. So excited that the day is here and we get to talk a little bit about what the Bucks might do and who might be available.
Yeah, you guys all start looking at it a long time before I do. I don't even bother starting to look until the College World Series is over, and then I start digging in.
Yeah, it changes a lot too, but this year a lot of the players have their names remain the same near the top. So usually a ton of shuffling going on as that season progresses, but not a ton from where I remember the early mocks, at least off the top of my head. So it is I do get carried away starting a little early, but never too early to start preparing for the next wave, I guess.
I love it though, because I think when you guys do that, I think one thing it adds to it, you get to see a little bit of progression. Like you get to kind of see the story from, hey, this guy is thought of at this point here. Now let's see what he does throughout this College World Series run or whatever, this college season. And it can shade your opinion a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you do see the guys like we're going to probably touch on here, but Cade Anderson looked like 1-1 at times during the World Series. I think he went, 16 innings and struck out 17. One was a complete game. And you're like, oh my gosh, how's he not go before 6 anyway? And then you have the kid, the no-hitter, Wood, I think, was it Arkansas? Gage Wood. And he was already thought of as a first round. And that just kind of, how high does he go now after the big stage doing that? So, yeah, it's fun. It is fun to watch how it develops. So I also one of the players we'll touch on, I root for their home team out here. I'm in Oregon, so follow Oregon State a good deal. And we'll touch on that, gentlemen, at some point here too. So fun to watch them. Always fun when the Beavs have players in the talks, and especially when the Pirates may get one. So
let's refresh everybody's memory here about the top of the board. We got the Washington Nationals picking first. They just fired their GM just a week ago. So who knows where their head is, but we do know what people mostly have them mocking. Los Angeles Angels are second. Your guess is as good as anybody's about what they're going to do. Seattle Mariners picking early, might have some local ties to some guys. It could be an interesting thing for them. Colorado Rockies are anyone's guess about anything they ever do. St. Louis Cardinals, same kind of deal at this point. And the Pittsburgh Pirates pick 6th. Let's just start at the beginning. Let's kind of lay it out the way you did. Let's start talking about some of those top college pitchers. You described this draft as deep, but without a clear number one. So how does that kind of shape the Pirates' approach to the 6th pick?
In the way I look at it is it offers little downside. Looking at that top tier, it's like maybe some years has like I'm going to use the scouting terminology for grades here because that's how most people will do it. So you'll look at one guy or two guys in like the 60, sometimes a 65 range, or you get that freak like a Harper and it's like a 70, which you don't really get. So we're not even talking about that. But this class is a little deeper with what you would consider maybe 50 range players. I've seen some evaluators say that there's 30 to 32 50 level prospects, and that's a deep class in general. I'm just thinking about last year in this time of year, and we had maybe 15, maybe it might have been less. So I think to your more pointedly, I think it would be hard to not land a good prospect picking it at the 6 to 12 range. You would need to do something pretty off the grid to do that. So there's going to be good options. It's just a matter of where the front office of your team thinks you could be best filling those holes. And as I mentioned in the piece, teams don't draft for need in baseball, and nor should you, because you're very rarely going to find that guy unless you're the Angels. Then everyone you take can fill a need right away with the way they handle things. But yeah, the Pirates are in a really good spot. There's some players that will probably more than likely not fall to them, but again, they should be able to pick somebody in that range of 60 to 55 future value grade prospect. And there's some 50s that make sense there too, because that's a 50 as a high school kid, mostly in the projection, as we saw with Connor Griffin last year, who I think a lot of evaluators didn't even have a 50 on because there were some big questions that he answered quite well.
Yeah. So if your scouts end up being smarter than all the other scouts, it can happen sometimes, right? Yep. I mean, Mike Trout got picked pretty late, right? So
like 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Cade Anderson. When you talk about him amongst the rest of the college arms, what kind of makes him separate? What separates him out?
Well, he's also, I believe he is a draft eligible sophomore too. So that helps as well. He dominated in SEC play both years. This year, obviously, a little more so than his first year. But it's a professional pitch mix that he's got. The fastball is big. It's not as elite as, say, Doyle's, which is probably the premier pitch in the whole fastball wise in the class. It's not quite the same. He's got probably a better ability to pitch, if that makes sense. He's got a better feel, right? Which people talk about being a pretty big draw for him. The curveball is stupendous. It plays very well with the fastball. I would say the curve's probably his standout pitch, but it's the pitchability. He's got a pretty deep repertoire with, I believe, like his worst graded pitch right now is probably about average. So really it's the whole package. He can touch upper 90s from the left side. I think he sits mid generally, and that's nowadays it's a little more common. That used to be pretty uncommon. But for a kid that young, it's really a total package. And I think also you look at that and you say, well, he's probably going to remain a starter. And that's a big thing when picking it.
And I've heard a couple other people say, he's got the ability to potentially be in a major league rotation within a year or two. A really high floor guy. They think the ceiling's there too, but this guy you're drafting because the floor already has him as a MLB regular contributor.
That's right. And in the piece I mentioned talking about another player, how the floor, what fans may not get excited to hear about the floor of a player, but I think major league clubs are a little bit more excited about that than fans. The floor is pretty important. The floor of a starting pitcher is a pretty high floor when it comes to developing these guys. So yeah, exactly right.
Well, you mentioned him already, but let's talk a little bit about Liam Doyle. The stuff sounds crazy electric. What's the upside? What's the risk?
The risk would probably be a move to the bullpen. But if you watch him, he could probably pitch in a major league bullpen. Well, if he goes to the Angels, we may find out by the end of this year how soon
he may be up there in September, right?
Yeah, and there are some parallels that I mentioned in the piece about teams would probably think about moving him like that anyway, like the White Sox did with his former Tennessee Vol alumni Garrett Crotchet. Not the same pitcher, but just the same kind of way to use him, because Crotchet came out with that big fastball and did work in relief. That was a pretty good White Sox team, though, if I recall. So
yeah,
not that the Angels they're not bad, but it's not the same. But they do push very aggressively, and it is the fastballs is tremendous. And one of the things people say, the move to the bullpen, because the repertoire isn't quite as good. It's very good. That he's got several useful like above average pitches, but he's pitching a lot off of that fastball, and it's nasty. If he lives up in the zone with it, it is just a nightmare, and he does command it. I believe he has a really good chance to stay as a starter too, but it's probably a little riskier in general. He's also, if you've had a chance to watch him, he's got to just ingest more caffeine than anyone on the planet when he pitches. He's fun. He's probably my favorite player to watch out of this group. I don't know, can he do that in the major leagues and survive? Can you? Maybe he can. He kind of reminds me of like the old school, like the Nasty Boys era of pitcher, right? Because he's a dog on the mound.
Well, that's a good segue from your favorite player to watch potentially to maybe your favorite of the college arms. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's pick up with Jamie Arnold. We've all been there. Togging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you could save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Hey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit us with a like. And Corey Shrader here from Steel City Pirates with us, and we're going to talk about Jamie Arnold, your personal favorite of these college pitchers. Why? What makes him an interesting pick?
So watching Jamie Arnold, I've seen several evaluators make a similar comparison in not necessarily in the way his stuff plays, but visibly he is I called it a funky arm slot. And I think we had at least one comment on that, concerned about when I used that word to describe it, that it was a not sustainable in terms of injury risk or something. And that's not really how I meant it. I meant that as in atypical. It's just not one you see a lot. And there's a rule that I like to apply to watching pitchers. If they throw from that slot and if their stuff is really big and they can pitch, not just, trying to blow it by people only kind of thing. That gives them a chance to be special because they can already do something that others can't by virtue of that delivery and the release point. And that's what I like about him, really. I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Sale, but you can see why he's a nightmare just by watching him. The arm slot is a low. I don't exactly know. It's a low, very far out. It comes from a very difficult angle to hit, and the fastball comes in with a very flat approach. It's a modern fastball, I would call it, as most evaluators might describe it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to watch. It's different. I don't have any injury concerns watching it. I do get what people are saying there, but I think it is just a strange arm slot that I don't think a lot of people are used to seeing. It's one of those real long extensions almost towards the base as opposed to
Yeah.
the plate. And like Chris Sale comes to mind, that kind of almost hinge and pivot look to his pitch.
Yep, that's right. So he's primarily got the two headliner pitches that play off of one another, and that's what makes him such an effective pitcher, the fastball and the slider. He does throw a changeup, and I saw some reports and some video from early in the year of him working on a cutter in games, but it wasn't something that has been getting highlighted much by other evaluators, and I honestly I haven't seen him throw it enough to really have any idea of how good it is. I've only seen a handful of them, and it was earlier in the season, but it's the two headliner pitches. I know that most folks will tell you can't live off of two pitches, and some guys can, especially it helps if you have that freakish delivery that makes them play differently, right? But the changeup isn't a nothing pitch. It works. It's a good pitch. It's average. Sometimes I've seen it above average sometimes, but it's really headlined by the fastball slider. And it is modern.
We should talk about some of the high school standouts now, because that's really the next category. Seth Hernandez is drawing comparisons to Hunter Green. What makes him such a rare prep arm, and is it possible that he would fall to the Pirates? I mean, I've seen him mocked to the Pirates a couple times, but I find it hard to believe a team like Seattle would pass on him.
Yeah, Seth Hernandez, watching a guy like him pitch against high school opposition, it doesn't seem it's not very fair, because he is it's a pretty advanced high school pitcher. He's not up there just trying to overpower you. In fact, I think his best offering other than the pretty big velocity, is his changeup. He's got what some people had put like a 60. I seen like one evaluator put like a 70 on it already, and that's pretty wild. It's a great pitch. He's got a chance for 2+ pitches from what I've seen in the fastball, and then obviously the change is likely already there. I've seen a couple of guys that have been evaluating draft prospects for a long time say it's one of the best prep changeups they've ever seen. I don't know if you remember Dylan Lesko a couple of years ago. I believe San Diego drafted him, and he also had a big time change coming out. So it garnered similar grades. But yeah, the age and the ability to pitch is there too. Not just blowing it by kids that just clearly can't hit him. So your question about Seattle, I think my sense from the last couple of days leading up since the piece came out, there have been new mock drafts going out since then. He's the name of that next group that I covered of like possibilities for Pirates at 6 that seems to be getting some traction about moving up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do think he's certainly in the mix for Seattle. They, much like the Pirates, have a terrific pitching development system, and I get the sense that it'll be hard for them to pass on him getting into their system. They've elevated a lot of their pitching recently. It's in the majors now, and we can see how good it is. We just saw it was. I think that it'll be tough for them, and he's terrific. He's probably one of my 3 favorite players in the entire draft, for early draft at least. He would be great in Pittsburgh system too, but my gut is telling me he may be off the board at this point. I'm
thinking the same thing. Yeah. So Eli Willlets has been skyrocketing up people's boards. Some of that's driven by the idea that he might take a little bit less, might be an underslot selection up towards the top of the board. But the latest mocks don't have him rising quite as high as I think people had originally thought he would. Does seem like there's a connection there with the Cardinals at 5.
The Cardinals at 5 was the most likely early landing spot that all of the mocks seem to have for Willlets. He gained a ton of helium right around the combine-ish time. And he was a reclassify from the next year, from 2026. So
yeah, he's very, very young.
Mentioned in the piece, he would be the youngest. At one point, there was some thought that he could go 1-1. He would have been the youngest player ever selected at 1-1 at that point. The helium has kind of feels like it's come down a little bit, and I don't know, that may just be pre-draft bluster to keep teams off of the scent, or some negotiation type tactics that the general public doesn't really put much stock into, but it does seem like he would be an option for the Pirates. And again, he's another guy that I think the floor is a big positive for, given that he is so young. He's got a bunch of tools that are already great around average, tons of projection given the age, and he does have major league bloodlines. So that goes into it a lot, especially with the guy I don't know that we need to talk about, Ethan Holiday, but it's the same deal. The bloodlines, they're a thing. They matter. So
right.
Willlets would be an interesting. I get the sense that he could be there at 6 based on the last couple of days, though.
You got Billy Carlson's pretty much in that same category. He could be hanging around at that point, and if he is, that would be somebody that the Pirates would probably be interested in as well, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm a very big Billy Carlson fan. It's one of the rare prospects that I like watching the fielding aspect of his game a lot. He is incredibly smooth. I think one strength of his as it relates to becoming a pro is that he may be the best shortstop in the class in terms of pure shortstop, sticking shortstop. Arm is good. He's always tested well at the big events for high school prep kids for athleticism, even though it's not like the range is good. It's not like the crazy range kind of athleticism. It's more of the fluidity and that kind of thing. Strong arm. He also is a pitcher in high school. And I think he could, if he just wanted to pitch only, would be a first rounder, probably as a pitcher from first, second round, early, comp second round, just pitcher. So the arm strength is good. The big question for him, for most people, is the hit, the upside on the bat. I think he will be a good hit tool guy. He's the power is the question for a lot of people. Will it ever even be average is one I've seen some people asking. And I mentioned in the piece, and I'll plug it here because I think it gives me a little hope. There was an event, 2024, I think it was the All-American game. His bat speed was measured at 81 miles per hour. And obviously that's an aluminum bat. It's not a wood bat, but the bat speed, hand speed, generally tells me that there's juice in there. It may be a swing change or something needed to really get to it, but it
may just be growing into his body a little bit too. I mean,
if you look at him, he's a very slightly built kid. So my own personal feeling is it'd be hard to pass him. If your other top guy at 6, whoever your other top guy is, which we haven't got to the most recently rumored other top guy yet. So it kind of depends what happens before them. I am a Billy Carlson fan. I think he is right in that same group with the other, like the big college lefty pitchers, Seth Hernandez. I think he's a very good player, and I don't know. It's more of a gut feeling to me that he's going to be a player at the major league level, and a shortstop.
And I think JoJo Parker we can pretty much pass on here for the Pirates. I just think he's fallen a little bit too far down the board to think that that's going to happen at number 6, right?
I would agree. I have not seen him go anywhere higher than about right after the Pirates a little bit. And again, it gets dictated by who goes before at that point. But I would say he's not currently an option that they would take unless, and even so, if he were on the board and it was looking like it, somebody else has fallen. So I think at that point, I don't believe it would be JoJo Parker at this point. Well, he's a fun player too.
we've held it off enough. Let's take our last break and come back and talk about Arquette a little bit. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Corey Shrader joining us here from Steel City Pirates, and let's talk Ava Arquette. What makes him the top college position player in the class? And I should also add, in the latest mocks I've read, just about everybody has him going to the Pittsburgh Pirates at number 6.
Yes, so Arquette is a very large man, a large human capable of playing shortstop. And he's some think he may outgrow the position. Not necessarily true. Doesn't always happen, but he's a big guy. He can play the position. I've got to watch him a good amount this year, and I think he could handle it. Moving him over for some teams could end up being we need a third baseman a little bit more. So, and we know you can handle this. So that could be a part of it. But for me, the carrying tool, you're talking, he's a power hitter, really. Yeah. He, I think he ran something that the numbers I could find, and it's a little hard for college, but he ran something like a 60% hard hit rate. He was putting up 60 grade power metric on exit velocities that I could find. He makes a ton of high quality contact, talking everybody's favorite. I refuse to call it X bacon, but I call it X damage. I love bacon, but it's a little too silly. So I call that X damage. He hits the ball hard. He hits the ball in the air in line drives. He's a very good prospect. He would be my number one college hitter. I think most people's at this point. Ike Irish challenges a little bit, but
I think talk about Ike Irish a little bit, because a lot of people keep suggesting him, and I know you just named him as a possibility, and I understand why, because I just can't see a world where at 6 it wouldn't be a complete reach to go to Ike Irish. I would think you'd have to know something, right?
Yeah, I assume Irish maybe could be a guy that would take a bit of a haircut on the money. So I suppose that could do it. He's been a solid to very good SEC performer. That is always a big plus for draft time. He too is a 60 grade type power guy. He's arguably the number 2 college bat from a pure bat upside. I think there's a couple other guys that maybe as like an overall player may get a little bit more love, like a Merrick Houston, but I don't think he would be in the mix there. With Irish, I would assume that it is a fast moving, power hitting SEC performer, and that gives teams a lot of confidence that you've probably got a major league hitter. There's others that are a little higher on him than some. My read on that is you think he's going to move fast, and you think he's going to slug homers. And he probably will. But like you said, it feels like either a reach or it's a guy you think you can cut a deal with to then distribute that money to prep kids in your next couple of picks, which is a fine strategy in its own. And it's not like
fine strategy, I think, but I also feel like there's a very distinct difference between the prep kids and the that are projected to go in the first round this year versus the guys that are beyond that. And I don't think there's an awful lot of guys you're going to sway out of going to college with money either.
Yeah, it would likely need to be substantial money. You're talking like $2-ish million probably for that kind of kid now, which there's no problem doing. That does affect the rest of your class, though. There's a lot that goes into that most people don't think about off the top. And I don't know that you should be organizing your draft that way necessarily anyway. You take the best player, in my opinion. The high school kids have a lot of leverage. Not that it's not risky, but the transfer portal changes things a little bit too. You got kids changing teams every year. Heck, Liam Doyle's played for 3 different teams in his 3 college years. So there, between the two, Arquette to me is clearly, I think he's clearly a better player. And some of that is that can he stick it short makes a big difference too. That's the premium position.
I think we've talked about just about all the likely candidates here. What's your prediction? I mean, who's going to be there and who do the Pirates take?
I think we mentioned a little bit how Hernandez was definitely a guy that I thought we both would have thought was in the mix, but it does seem like his stock has jumped a little bit here as we've gotten closer. I get the sense that it's like a three-way race, more or less. And that would be Arquette seems to be the chalk right now based on the general consensus we're getting in mocks.
Right.
Billy Carlson, I think, is also heavily in the mix. He's a guy that I've seen the most connected to Pittsburgh the entire time. There's something to be said for that too. And then Hernandez, I would likely be in that mix too if he is sitting there at 6. I would put him at the lowest chances of being there at this point of those 3. I think one of those teams ahead may really fall in love with that upside, especially a team like Seattle. And you had mentioned, we talked a little pre-show how Seattle does have a little bit of a connection in terms of at least the recent geography with Arquette playing at the University of Washington and then here in Oregon playing for Oregon State. He's from Hawaii, but he's played his college ball in the Pacific Northwest. I'm sure they've seen him a lot. He's a guy I've seen linked to them a whole lot too. But that has changed a little bit here in the mocks, the consensus from folks who are a little plugged in and do have sources. Sources don't always have all the info either, though. You're just getting what they're willing to give. So
last thing I really wanted to bother you with, though, before we just get off of players altogether, Ethan Holiday, likely in the mix for number 1 overall pick, right? And we didn't even mention him. If he falls to the Pirates, do they have a choice here? Do they have to take him?
Yeah, I think so. You got a chance to get a kid into your system with tremendous major league bloodlines, tremendous present power. And what we saw, what the Pirates were able to do with Connor Griffin and some of the hit tool questions that he had, you would say, okay, well, let's see if we can do it again. It seems that the floor for Holiday looks like the Rockies based upon most of the mocks and rumors that you read. But if he's there, it would be pretty tough to pass that. You never know how quickly a guy like that will move. Obviously, prep hitters are you can get Elijah Green or you can get Connor Griffin.
It's unfathomable to see the Cardinals passing on the lineage of Holiday, though, right?
That's another. They'd have to really love somebody or have a real sweetheart deal in place with someone like a Willlets to do that. Holiday would be very hard to pass. You're talking plus power from a kid like that with hit tool that some people are a little more bullish on right now. So
right.
And how would you not? How could you pass him?
I think I'd be happier if they got Arquette, if only because I feel like that could be a contributor pretty quick. But
yeah, and to your point, if we're thinking front office behavior, which is always hard to predict, the Pirates are kind of tight-lipped in general, but you got a GM who may want a faster moving option for purposes of security of his own, that could be a factor. I don't know exactly if that's true or not, how a guy behaves picking in that position. You don't know.
Right.
But he's also just a really good prospect. So like we had kind of talked about, it'd be very hard to make a bad selection here. Arquette, I feel Arquette right now, it would be Arquette. And should he come off the board, my gut would be Billy Carlson based on the long connection to him. And I personally like him. I've seen a lot of folks online, Pirates people kind of question why they would do that, but I think it's pretty obvious to see that it's a high floor.
Right.
I think that's overlooking the both the floor and the potential ceiling that is in there. So he looks like a major leaguer in terms of being able to handle the position. You just need to get in the lab on that swing a little bit. And, maybe you're talking like I've seen a couple of people say Dansby Swanson, but with louder tools as kind of like an ultimate upside. So that's a pretty good player. Dansby Swanson's not the flashiest guy in the world, but he is a good major league player, even at this point. And if you're talking a more tooled up version, then that's maybe like a 5-win, 5-WAR player or higher. And you don't get those very often.
You don't pass on them either when you get an
option. You certainly don't.
Yeah, right.
You certainly don't. Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, Arquette feels like the guy, provided Seattle goes a different direction at 3.
I think I'm right with you on it. Either way, it's going to be exciting. Hey, I hope everybody enjoyed this show. Just want to say that's going to do it for us today here on Locked On Pirates. Big thank you to Corey Shrader for joining us here, sharing his insights. If you haven't read his full breakdown on Steel City Pirates, go check it out before the draft today. And whether the Pirates go with a polished college arm or a high upside prep bat or somebody totally off the radar, one thing's for sure, this front office has a good opportunity to make a good pick here at number 6. We'll be back with more draft coverage and Pirates talk all week long. Until next time, I'm Gary Morgan, and this has been Locked On Pirates, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.